The war began with a single sheet of paper, slipped under my front door like a silent declaration of hostility. I'd been in Maple Grove, a gated community nestled in the verdant hills outside Raleigh, North Carolina, for just 4 weeks. My name is Rachel Harper, 49, a former counterintelligence agent turned private security consultant. After 2 decades navigating espionage threats in dusty outposts and corporate boardrooms, I'd bought this craftsman-style home, its wide porch framed by blooming dogwood trees, for a quiet retirement. The Maple Grove brochure had promised a sanctuary of community and tranquility, with glossy photos of smiling neighbors and pristine lawns. What it didn't mention was the 400-page HOA rulebook, a labyrinth of regulations that reeked of control rather than camaraderie. I'd seen power plays in war zones. I didn't expect them in a suburban cul-de-sac. The letter, printed on crisp Maple Grove HOA letterhead, cited a violation: my front yard fountain, a small stone feature I'd installed to honor my late father, was non-compliant with community aesthetic standards. The fine was $250, due in 3 days, or it would double. I read it twice, my initial amusement fading into unease. The language was cold, almost militaristic. Immediate rectification required, and signed by Ed Thornton. Listed as compliance director, I'd faced rogue operatives and corrupt officials. A suburban HOA wasn't going to rattle me over a fountain. But the letter's tone, its presumption of absolute authority, stirred my old instincts. I tucked it into a drawer, planning to deal with it later. My son, Ethan, arrived the next day for a 6-week visit. At 32, he was a cybercrime investigator with the FBI's Raleigh field office, his razor-sharp mind honed by years of dismantling digital fraud networks. He never advertised his job, shrugging it off as tech guy for the feds with a sly grin. But I knew his work involved high-stakes case-shacking rings, money laundering, crimes hidden behind clean facades. Over coffee on the porch, I showed him the letter. "This is performative," he said, scanning it with a frown. "The phrasing's designed to intimidate, not inform." Compliance director? That's not a standard HOA title. This guy's flexing power he probably doesn't have. His eyes lit up, the way they did when he spotted a digital trail worth chasing. "Let's see who Ed Thornton is." The doorbell rang mid-morning, sharp and insistent. I opened it to find Ed Thornton himself, a stocky man in his early 60s with a buzz cut and eyes that didn't smile. He wore a navy blazer with an HOA badge pinned like a sheriff's star, his posture screaming ex-law enforcement. "Ms. Harper," he said, his voice clipped, "your fountain violates Regulation 6.3.2. Remove it by tomorrow, or we'll escalate to fines and potential removal at your expense." His gaze swept my property, lingering on the solar lanterns I'd added along the walkway. "Those lanterns might be necks. Review the covenant." He handed me another notice, identical to the first, and strode off, his boots grinding the gravel with deliberate force. I watched him go, my counterintelligence training kicking in. His walk, his scan of the surroundings, military or police, no question. But there was something else, a hunger for control, that felt personal, almost predatory. Ethan joined me, his laptop already open. "I'm running a background check," he said. "That guy's got the vibe of someone who lost real power and is overcompensating in a sandbox." I nodded, my unease deepening. I'd dealt with petty tyrants before, corrupt commanders in the field. Corporate sharks in boardrooms, but they were usually in high-stakes arenas, not suburban neighborhoods. I emailed the HOA board, citing North Carolina's HOA statutes on reasonable enforcement, expecting a quick clarification or apology. Instead, I got a call from Patricia Langston, the HOA president. Her voice was polished, almost maternal, but carried a razor's edge. "Ms. Harper, Maple Grove thrives on order and uniformity. Your fountain disrupts our aesthetic cohesion. Pay the fine and comply, or you'll find this community less welcoming than you expected." The threat was subtle but unmistakable, hanging in the air like a storm cloud. I hung up, my jaw tight. This wasn't about a fountain, it was about submission. The escalation came faster than I anticipated. 3 days later, a second notice arrived, taped to my front door like a public shaming: unauthorized exterior modifications for a small herb garden I'd planted in the backyard. Fine, $300. Ethan noticed the signature shifted. Thornton, now listed as security coordinator. He's cycling titles, Ethan said, his brow furrowing. That's a red flag. Legitimate authority doesn't need to reinvent itself daily. This guy's playing a role. That afternoon, our power flickered off for 6 hours. The HOA's excuse was a grid maintenance issue, but my neighbor, Clara Mills, a spry retiree with a sharp tongue and a knack for gossip, confirmed her power was unaffected. "Welcome to Maple Grove," Clara said over the fence, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I'm the unofficial historian around here. Ed's Patricia's attack dog, former highway patrol, kicked out over a bribery scandal, though his buddies buried it. Patricia's worse. Her husband's a real estate mogul, and folks who cross her end up selling cheap and vanishing fast." Ethan's brow lifted. "How many have left?" Clara shrugged, her smile fading. "At least 18 in 3 years. Always the same story: fines, vandalism, accidents. It's like they're running a protection racket." Ethan and I dug deeper that evening, sitting at the kitchen table with laptops and coffee, using his FBI access. He pulled Ed's records, forced resignation from the North Carolina Highway Patrol 14 years ago, after an internal probe into corruption. With no charges filed due to insufficient evidence, Patricia's husband, Robert Langston, owned a web of LLCs that had purchased 20 Maple Grove homes at steep discounts, all from owners citing HOA disputes as their reason for selling. My stomach churned as the pieces fell into place. This wasn't petty bureaucratic overreach. It was a calculated real estate scam, using the HOA as a weapon to drive out targeted residents for profit. "They're weaponizing the covenant," Ethan said, his voice low. "Fines, harassment, and sabotage to tank property values. Then they swoop in and buy low before flipping for millions. Your house is in a prime spot near the proposed tech park development. They want it bad." The next morning, Clara stopped by with a homemade blueberry pie, her warm smile masking a flicker of unease. "You're stirring the hornet's nest," she said, settling into a porch chair. "I've lived here 15 years, seen 3 HOA presidents come and go. Patricia's the worst, runs this place like a fiefdom. Her husband's got half the city council in his pocket, and Ed's his muscle. They targeted my friend Helen 2 years ago. She questioned a $10,000 landscaping fee, and suddenly her car was keyed, her water shut off, her mailbox smashed. She sold for pennies and moved to Florida." Clara leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Your fountain's just an excuse. They've got you in their sights." Ethan, listening from the doorway, asked, "Who else has been hit?" Clara rattled off Nemesic's families in the past year alone, all outspoken at HOA meetings, all gone after months of bad luck. That afternoon, I flipped through the HOA rulebook, a tome of absurdities. No fences over 4 feet, no outdoor lights brighter than 60 watts, no visible recreational equipment like basketball hoops or trampolines. One clause stood out: the HOA could conduct compliance inspections with 24 hours notice. As a former intelligence agent, I knew overreach when I saw this was a legal pretext for invasion, a way to intimidate residents into compliance. I made notes to challenge it at the next HOA meeting, but my focus shifted when our internet dropped for 8 hours that evening. The HOA blamed a network upgrade, but Clara's Wi-Fi was fine. Ethan's suspicions deepened. "This is targeted," he said, plugging his laptop into a mobile hotspot. "They're testing how far they can push you before you break." The HOA meeting a week later was a masterclass in intimidation, held in the community center's sterile conference room. Patricia, a weary woman in her late 50s with a perm and a politician's smile, presided at a polished oak table, flanked by Ed, who stood at the door like a sentinel, arms crossed. About 70 residents filled the rows of folding chairs, most avoiding eye contact, their whispers dying as Patricia called the meeting to order. When I raised my hand to challenge the herb garden fine, Patricia's smile tightened, her eyes glinting like polished steel. "Ms. Harper, our covenant ensures property values. If you can't comply, perhaps Maple Grove isn't the right home for you." Her words were polite, but laced with venom, a warning to fall in line. A woman named Lisa Chen, a soft-spoken accountant who'd questioned a 25% spike in maintenance fees, was cut off with a curt budget necessities. A man named Daniel Park, a former journalist, asked about transparency in the HOA's financials, only to be dismissed with a vague, "All records are available upon request." The room felt like a courtroom under martial law. Dissenters silenced by Patricia's glare and Ed's looming presence. I observed the crowd, noting the nervous glances, the way hands fidgeted when Ed's eyes swept the room. These were homeowners, doctors, teachers, reader escorted into submission by a pair of petty tyrants. My training kicked in, cataloging details, Patricia's controlled gestures, Ed's subtle nods to a man in the back row, likely an ally. As we left the meeting, Clara slipped me a folded note, her movements quick to avoid attention. I opened it in the car. They record everything. Cameras in the center, mix in the halls. Watch your back. Ethan read it over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. "This isn't just an HOA," he said. "It's a surveillance operation." Back home, Ethan was already working, his laptop screen glowing with property records and financial trails. Patricia's husband's LLCs control $12 million in Maple Grove real estate, he said, pulling up a map of the neighborhood. They've bought 20 homes in 3 years, all at 20 to 30% below market value. Your lot completes a key block they need for a commercial deal tied to the tech park. My unease turned to anger. They'd targeted me from the moment I signed the deed, before I'd even unpacked my first box. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up more data. Ed's got a history of shady side gig security consulting for Robert Langston's firms. No legit credentials, just a badge and a gun he shouldn't have. I felt a chill, not just from the scheme but from how personal it was. This wasn't random, it was a campaign. The next morning, our water shut off for 10 hours, blamed on emergency repairs. Clara's faucets ran fine, confirming our suspicions. Ethan installed motion-activated cameras around the property, their feeds encrypted and stored on a private server I set up in the basement. "If they want a fight, they'll get one," he said, his voice calm but edged with determination. That night, our cameras caught Ed spray painting a red circle on our garage door. The words "comply" or "leave" scrawled in bold letters. The footage was grainy but clear in office buzz cut, his distinctive boots, the deliberate way he scanned for witnesses. "Classic playbook," Ethan said, saving the file. "Fines, service disruptions, vandalism. They want you scared enough to sell." I was furious, but Ethan was in his element, his cybercrime instincts fully engaged. "We need an insider," he said, "someone who knows their operation from the inside." That insider found us 2 days later at a local coffee shop, where we'd gone to avoid potential surveillance at home. Emily Tran, the HOA's treasurer, a nervous woman in her early 40s with dark circles under her eyes, approached our table after overhearing Ethan's questions about the meeting. "I've been tracking their finances for 3 years," she whispered, sliding a USB drive across the table. "Patricia's siphoned $600,000 from HOA funds to consulting firms owned by her husband. Ed's the muscle fines, vandalism, even tampering with utilities to pressure people. They forced my brother out 2 years ago with the same tactics." I stayed to gather proof. Her hands trembled, but her voice was resolute, a mix of fear and defiance. "You just seem like you can fight back." I wanted to help. I studied Emily, assessing her the way I'd vetted informants in the field. Her fear was real, but so was her resolve. "Why now?" I asked. She swallowed, glancing at the door. "Patricia confronted me yesterday, said she knows I've been snooping. I'm scared, but I can't let them ruin more lives. My brother lost everything, his home, his savings. They need to be stopped." Ethan nodded, slipping the USB drive into his pocket. "We'll protect your identity," he said, "but we need everything you have, emails, records, anything that ties Patricia to the money." Emily promised to deliver more, then left quickly, her shoulders hunched as if expecting a shadow to follow. That night, we reviewed Emily's files. The USB drive was a goldmine, bank statements showing $600,000 funneled to shell companies, invoices for fake landscaping services, and emails between Patricia and Robert discussing problem residents to neutralize. My house was on the list, alongside for others, all in prime locations for the tech park deal. "This is organized crime," Ethan said, his voice low. They're using the HOA as a front to launder money and manipulate real estate. We need to move carefully. I nodded, my mind racing. I'd faced enemies before, but they wore uniforms or suits, not HOA badges. This was a new kind of battlefield, and we were already in the crosshairs. The harassment grew bolder, a relentless campaign to wear us down. 2 days after Emily's meeting, a police car rolled into our driveway, its lights flashing in the quiet afternoon. An officer, young and visibly uneasy, said they'd received an anonymous tip about suspicious surveillance equipment at our address. I showed him Ethan's cameras, all mounted on private property, their lenses pointed inward. Everything's legal, I said, handing him the permit I'd secured weeks ago. He nodded, apologetic, and left, muttering, "Someone's got a grudge." Ethan traced the call to a burner phone, unlisted but purchased at a gas station near Ed's address. "He's got cop buddies from his highway patrol days," Ethan said, his jaw tight. "This is how they use local law to intimidate." The next morning, our internet dropped for 15 hours, blamed on a network upgrade. Ethan's cameras caught a man tampering with our router at 4 a.m., his build and boots matching Ed's. Though his face was obscured by a cap, "He's not even trying to hide," Ethan said, saving the footage. "He thinks he's untouchable." I filed a complaint with the city, attaching the video, but received a form letter, no actionable misconduct. The fix was in, and it was infuriating. I dealt with corrupt systems abroad, but seeing it in my own backyard hit harder. "They're counting on us giving up," I said. Ethan grinned, a spark in his eyes. "They don't know who they're dealing with." The harassment didn't stop. One morning, I found my car tires slashed, a note tucked under the wiper, "Last warning." Ethan's cameras caught two figures in hoodies, faces hidden, but one wore boots identical to Ed's. Clara reported similar accidents among other residents who'd questioned the broken windows. Flooded basements, mailboxes smashed, all blamed on random vandalism. "It's a pattern," Clara said over tea at her kitchen table. "They hit you where it hurts, make life miserable until you sell." My friend Helen had her sprinkler system sabotaged, $5,000 in repairs. She left a month later. Ethan leaned forward. "Who else is fighting back?" Clara hesitated, then named 3 others: Lisa Chen, Daniel Park, and a retiree named Martin Ruiz, all vocal at HOA meetings, all targeted with fines and accidents. Ethan reached out to his FBI colleague, Agent Sarah Patel, who confirmed a broader investigation into regional HOA fraud schemes. "Your evidence is tying Maple Grove to a network of real estate scams," she told him over a secure line. "We've got eyes on similar operations in Charlotte and Durham, but we need concrete proof on Patricia Langstone mails, recordings, anything that links her to the money or the harassment. Keep digging, but watch your back. These guys don't play clean." Ethan nodded, his expression grim. "We're not backing down," he said, "but we need more allies." We found one in Lisa Chen, the accountant who'd questioned the maintenance fees. She met us at a park outside Maple Grove, her eyes darting nervously. "I've been auditing the HOA's public records," she said, handing us a folder. "There's a $200,000 discrepancy in the landscaping budget, paid to a company that doesn't exist." I asked Patricia about it, and the next day, my garage was spray-painted with "Mind Your Business." "I'm scared, but I can't let this go." Ethan scanned the documents, his mind already connecting dots. "This matches Emily's data," he said. "The fake companies tied to Robert Langston's LLCs." Lisa agreed to join our growing coalition, promising to recruit others quietly. The stakes rose when Emily called, her voice trembling. "Patricia knows I'm leaking. She confronted me at the HOA office, said she'll ruin my life if I don't stop. I found a tracker on my car this morning." Ethan set up a secure phone for her and arranged a meeting at a diner 20 miles away to avoid surveillance. Emily arrived pale, clutching a second USB drive. "These are emails between Patricia and Robert," she said. "They're planning to target 5 more homes, including yours, for the tech park deal. There's also proof of bribes to a city council member, disguised as consulting fees." Ethan grinned, slipping the drive into his pocket. "This is the smoking gun. We've got them." But Patricia and Ed weren't idle. The next day, our mailbox was stuffed with 28 violation notices. ranging from unapproved paint hues on my shutters to excessive outdoor lighting for my lanterns. The fines totaled $5,000 to $100, an absurd sum meant to cripple us. That night, someone uprooted my herb garden, leaving a note, "Sell or suffer." Ethan's cameras caught 3 figures in masks, one with Ed's distinctive boots. Clara's car was keyed the same night, and Lisa's mailbox was smashed. "They're panicking," Ethan said, his voice calm but eyes hard. "They know we're closing in. I filed another city complaint, attaching our footage, but got another form letter." Ethan's contact, Sarah Patel, urged patience. "We're building a case," she said. "Get me a recording of Patricia or Ed admitting their scheme, and we can move." The harassment grew more brazen. One evening, a police car pulled up, claiming a noise complaint about my radio, which hadn't been on. The officer, an older man with a familiar swagger, left after finding no evidence. Ethan recognized him from Ed's old patrol unit, confirming their network. Then our water shut off for 12 hours, blamed on pipeline maintenance. Ethan's cameras caught a man tampering with our meter at 3 a.m., his silhouette matching Ed's. "He's escalating because he's scared," Ethan said. "We're hitting their weak points." I nodded, my anger tempered by resolve. I'd faced enemies who played dirty. This was just a new kind of battlefield. We organized a secret meeting at Clara's house, inviting 35 residents who'd expressed frustration with the HOA. The group included Lisa, Daniel, Martin, and a dozen others who'd suffered fines or vandalism. Ethan presented Emily's financial data, anonymized to protect her, and played the footage of Ed's garage door vandalism. Gasps filled the room as residents recognized the pattern: fines, sabotage, intimidation. Daniel, the former journalist, shared his findings. Patricia's husband had bribed a city council member to fast-track the tech park zoning, promising millions in profits. "They're not just bullies," Daniel said. "They're predators, using the HOA to steal our homes." The group formed the Maple Grove Fair Residents Alliance, vowing to demand a state audit and a new board election. Lisa volunteered to draft a petition, while Daniel contacted a local reporter who'd covered HOA scandals, planting the story. The retaliation was swift and vicious. 2 days later, our power cut out for 18 hours, blamed on a substation failure. Clara's lights stayed on, confirming the sabotage. Ethan's cameras were spray-painted black, but the footage from before the attack showed 2 men in suits, not hoodies, approaching the property. "They're pros," Ethan said, analyzing the video. "Patricia's hired outside help. I found a letter on my doorstep. $10,000 fine for non-compliance. Pay or face legal action." The notice, signed by Patricia, cited repeated covenant violations, including our cameras. Clara received a similar letter, as did Lisa and Daniel. "They're trying to divide us," Clara said, her voice fierce. "But we're done being scared." Ethan installed new cameras with infrared night vision, ensuring they were hidden in foliage to avoid detection. He also set up a burner phone for Clara, Lisa, and Daniel, creating an encrypted group chat for our coalition. "Assume they're being watched," he warned. "They've got surveillance tech cameras in common areas, maybe even bugs in homes." The thought was chilling, but my training kept me focused. I'd run ops against hostile regimes. A suburban HOA wasn't going to outmaneuver us. Ethan reached out to Sarah Patel again, uploading Emily's new evidence. "We're close," she said. "If you can get Ed or Patricia on record admitting their crimes, we can raid their operation." The breaking point came for weeks into our fight, during a client meeting in downtown Raleigh. Ethan called, his voice steady but urgent. "Mom, Ed's at the house with a gun, demanding I remove the cameras. He's unhinged. Get here fast." My heart pounded as I sped home, weaving through traffic, my mind racing. Ethan was trained for high-stakes situations, but a gun changed the equation. I called Clara, who promised to alert neighbors, and dialed 911, reporting an armed trespasser. The dispatcher warned of a 10-minute delay due to a nearby accident and eternity in a crisis. I pulled into the driveway to find Ethan on the front lawn, facing Ed. He held a pistol low, not aimed but visible, his voice booming over the quiet street. "Those cameras violate Section 12.3 of the Covenant," he shouted, gesturing wildly. Take them down, or I'll rip 'em out myself. Ethan stood calm, his posture relaxed but alert, hands loose at his sides. You're on private property, Ed, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. Trespassing with a firearm is a felony. Back off now, or you're done. A small crowd of neighbors gathered, watching from their lawns. Phones out, recording. Ed's face reddened, his grip tightening on the gun. This is my neighborhood, he roared, stepping closer. You think you're untouchable? I froze, my training screaming to de-escalate. But Ethan was already moving. In a blur, he disarmed Ed with a precise strike to his wrist, twisting his arm behind his back and pinning him to the ground. The gun skidded across the grass, landing near my feet. Pick it up, Mom, Ethan said, his voice steady as he secured Ed's wrists with a cable tie from his pocket. Use your sleeve and touch the grip. I complied, my hands steady despite my racing pulse. Call the police again, he added. Make sure they know we've got an armed suspect detained. The police arrived 8 minutes later, their sirens cutting through the tension. 2 officers approached cautiously, hands on holsters, assessing the scene. Patricia pulled up in a sleek black SUV, leaping out and screaming, "This is a misunderstanding." Ed's our security coordinator, the lead officer, a grizzled veteran named Eskiti. Carter wasn't buying it. "Ma'am, step back," he said, gesturing for her to stay clear. Ethan identified himself as FBI, showing his badge with calm authority. "This man threatened me with an unregistered firearm," he said, pointing to the gun I'd secured. "He's got no permit, and the weapon's likely stolen. Run the serial." The officers cuffed Ed, who glared at us with unbridled rage. His face contorted as they led him to the patrol car. Patricia turned on me, her composure shattered. "You've made a grave mistake, Ms. Harper," she hissed, her voice low enough for only me to hear. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," Ethan overheard, stepping between us. "Funny," he said, his smile cold. "That's exactly what I was about to say to you." As the police drove away with Ed, neighbors murmured, their fear giving way to curiosity. Clara approached, her eyes wide. "You'd just took down their enforcer," she said. "This changes everything, but I knew it didn't. Ed was a pawn, Patricia was the queen, and she wouldn't surrender her board without a fight." With Ed Thornton's arrest, the Maple Grove HOA's facade began to crack. But Patricia Langston wasn't ready to concede. The morning after the confrontation, our mailbox was stuffed with 30 new violation notices, citing everything from unapproved shrubbery to excessive outdoor furniture. For a single patio chair, the fines totaled $6,500, an absurd sum meant to cripple us financially. That night, someone smashed our front yard's fountain, leaving a note, "Sell or regret it." Ethan's infrared cameras caught 3 figures in ski masks, one wearing Ed's distinctive boots, likely a taunt, since he was in custody. Clara's car windshield was cracked, Lisa's mailbox was set ablaze, and Daniel's porch was trashed with paint cans. "They're hitting everyone who's with us," Clara said, her voice fierce but shaken. "They're trying to break the coalition." Ethan's jaw tightened as he reviewed the footage. "Patricia's desperate," he said. "She's hired pros to replace Ed's guys moved like train security, not random vandals." I filed a police report, attaching the video, but SGT. Carter warned us the evidence was circumstantial without clear faces. "We're investigating Thornton," he said, "but Langston's got friends in the city council. Tread carefully." Ethan's FBI agent Sarah Patel was more direct. "We're close to a raid," she told him over a secure line. "Your evidence seemly's financials, the emails, the vandalism footage Maple Grove to a regional fraud ring. Get me a recording of Patricia admitting her scheme, and we can move." We regrouped at Clara's, with Lisa, Daniel, and 20 others from our coalition. Emily joined us, her face pale but resolute, bringing a 3rd USB drive with new evidence, Patricia's direct orders to a shell company to sabotage utilities for problem residents. "She's planning to hit your house next," Emily warned. "They're cutting your power for 72 hours, starting tomorrow, for substation upgrades." Ethan projected the emails, showing payments of $50, 0 to a city councilman for tech park zoning bribes, The room buzzed with anger as residents shared their own stories, fines for invisible violations, late-night vandalism, anonymous threats. "They've been dividing us," Daniel said, his journalist's voice steady. "But we're stronger together." The coalition voted to file a collective lawsuit and demand a state audit, with Lisa drafting legal papers and Daniel pitching the story to a national outlet. Patricia's retaliation grew darker. 2 days later, our power went out for 72 hours, plunging the house into darkness. Clara's generator hummed nearby, confirming the sabotage. Ethan's cameras caught 2 men in suits disabling our power line, their movements precise, like ex-cops or private security. "She's outsourcing the dirty work," Ethan said, saving the footage. A new letter arrived, demanding $25,000 for cumulative covenant violations, signed by Patricia. Clara, Lisa, and Sarah Daniel received similar threats, their fines totaling $15,000. "They're trying to bankrupt us," Lisa said, her voice cracking. I placed a hand on her shoulder. "They won't win," I said, channeling the resolve I'd honed in crisis zones. "We're too close." Ethan installed new cameras with infrared night vision, hidden in foliage, and set up a backup generator to counter future outages. He also created a secure group chat for the coalition, using burner phones to evade surveillance. "Assume they're watching," he warned. "They've got cameras in common areas, maybe even bugs in homes." The thought was chilling, but my counterintelligence training kept me focused. I'd run ops against hostile regimes. A suburban HOA wouldn't outmaneuver us. Ethan uploaded Emily's latest evidence to Sarah Patel, who confirmed a federal task force was now targeting Patricia's network. "We need that audio," Sarah urged. "Get Patricia or one of her allies talking, and we'll have a warrant." The final battle loomed at an emergency meeting, called by Patricia to address community unrest. She aimed to expel me, claiming I'd disrupted Maple Grove's standards. We walked into the community center with our evidence, Emily's bank records, incriminating emails, and Ed's vandalism footage. Ethan set up a projector, ready to screen the proof. The room was packed with 90 residents, the air thick with tension. Patricia stood at the podium, flanked by 2 board members and a lawyer, her smile brittle. "Ms. Harper has incited rebellion against our covenant," she declared, her voice dripping with false concern. "We propose her immediate removal to restore order." I stepped to the mic, my heart steady despite the hostile glares from her allies. "This isn't about order," I said, my voice clear. "It's about theft and intimidation." Ethan launched the projector, displaying Ed's vandalism footage. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Emily, trembling but resolute, stood to reveal the $600,000 theft from HOA funds. Lisa authenticated the financials, while Daniel exposed the $50,000 bribe to a councilman. The room erupted, residents shouting questions as Patricia's face drained of color. "This is slander," she screamed, slamming the podium. "Adjourn this meeting," but Clara stood, her voice cutting through. "I move for a no-confidence vote. Per Article 9 of the bylaws." The crowd roared in support, voting 80 to 15 to oust the board, electing Emily as interim president. Patricia fled mid-meeting, shoving past residents as she screamed, "You'll pay for this." The victory was fleeting, as we knew she'd strike back. That night, our front door lock was smashed. From the darkened hallway, Ed's voice growled, "We need to talk, Rachel." "No cops." My heart pounded as Ethan stepped in front, signaling me to stay back. His hand hovered near his waist, but he was off duty, unarmed. "Ed," he called, voice steady. "Breaking and entering's a bad look for a guy facing felony charges." "What's the plan?" A harsh laugh echoed from the living room. "You think you've won? I know you, Ethan Harper be Cybercrime hotshot. But even feds can have accidents." We entered cautiously, finding Ed in my armchair, a new pistol gleaming on his knee. Ethan assessed the room exits, cover, Distanchi's eyes locked on Ed. "What's the endgame?" he asked. "Patricia's exposed, your gun's gone. The feds are circling. Walk away." He subtly pressed his phone, activating a live feed to Sarah Patel. Ed smirked, holding up a document. "Sign this, retract all accusations, and sell your house. I'll throw in $50,000 above market. Refuse, and it's a messy ending." He gestured with the gun. "Choose." I hesitated, but Ethan kept him talking, his voice calm but probing. So, you've targeted 22 homes for the tech park, $18 million in profits. Ed's ego swelled, unable to resist. 22, actually $20 million once the zoning passes. Your mom's just a speed bump. For 45 minutes, Ethan unraveled the Shemeshel companies. Bribes to councilmen, fake violations to frame residents. Patricia's the brains, Ed boasted, but I'm the muscle. Water leaks, slashed tires, broken locks. People break. When he aimed the gun at me, Ethan didn't flinch. 2 things, Ed, he said. That gun's stolen from a federal evidence locker, and this chat's been streamed to a DOJ task force outside. Ed's shock gave Ethan his opening. Ethan lunged, disarming Ed with a fluid strike, pinning him face down as Sarah burst in with a tactical team, weapons drawn. Edward Thornton, you're under arrest, she said, cuffing him as he raged. You can't touch me. Sarah's team swept the house, securing the gun and documents. Ethan, catching his breath, grinned at me. Told you we'd get him. Sarah nodded, her expression professional but warm. You'd have just handed us a RICO case. Patricia's network is done. The fallout was seismic. Ed pleaded guilty to reduced charges, implicating Patricia to lighten his sentence. She was arrested at her vacation home for fraud, conspiracy, wire fraud, and embezzlement, her husband's empire collapsing under federal scrutiny. The state audit revealed $784,000 in misappropriated HOA funds, funneled through 15 shell companies. New bylaws were drafted, ensuring transparency and elected oversight. With open financial records and regular audits, Ethan transferred to the Raleigh FBI office, helping rewrite the HOA covenant while tackling similar scams statewide. This fight showed me I need to be closer, he told me, grinning. I added a sign by my fountain, private property, no HOA tyranny. Cameras active, it became a neighborhood badge of pride, a symbol of our victory. The first community festival under the new HOA was a triumph. With 200 residents sharing stories of harassment, their voices now free. Clara's pies stole the show, while Lisa's newsletter chronicled our fight, sparking national debates on HOA reform. Daniel's memoir of the scandal hit bestseller lists, and I consulted for the new board, ensuring homeowners' rights were ironclad. In court, Patricia was sentenced to 18 years, Ed received 12 years. The judge called their scheme a grotesque betrayal of trust. As we left, a reporter asked how it felt to topple an HOA tyranny. It's about reclaiming your home, I said. Ethan added, grinning, and showing bullies the wrong target can end their game. Maple Grove bloomed anew, a true community, not a battlefield. My fountain gurgled under the dogwoods, and the hills felt like home.